Welcome, everybody, to Sideline to Speedway. Here, our second edition of our Motorsports podcast. I am your common host, Mekhi Winfrey, and I'm joined by Parker Merrey as usual. Lots of action happened this weekend at Gateway. A very tire-dependent race, I could say. A lot happened in Italy too at Monza. Team drama, lots to cover. Parker, do you have any thoughts before we kind of get into the show here, though?
I thought it was a very, I thought it was a very, I was kind of not super excited coming to the weekend, coming into Gateway, and I thought it was a very surprising race because historically we've seen Gateway be a race where we don't really see tire wear. We see some pretty bad racing, but this weekend we got some great racing, a lot of tire wear. I think that was great to see. A lot of drama at Monza, a lot for us to cover in today's show. So yeah, very exciting weekend and excited to see your thoughts on it.
Well, starting off with Gateway, um, there's not too much that happened in direct to the playoff drivers, I don't feel like. I mean, there were some incidents like Kyle Busch spun out early. I know Ty Dillon and his brother got they got into it in
Yeah,
turn one and two. I thought that
Josh
was
Berry crashed.
Josh Berry. Let's start with that actually. I mean, just a misjudgment by Chase Elliott, right? It's what it looked like.
Yeah, definitely. Some might say there was no contact, but I don't see how that's possible.
No, I think
Josh.
think it's pretty apparent.
Yeah, it's pretty apparent. It's pretty apparent. There's no defending that one from Elliott, and Josh Berry once again out in a playoff race,
In
and
stage one.
yeah, with him being 45 points behind now, it's looking like it's definitely a must-win situation for him at Bristol. Just a tough couple of races for him. He had a lot of high hopes coming into the playoffs. It's been a great year for him in that 21 team. It's the best year we've seen out of the 21 in a very long time. So I think probably Brian Blaney was the last guy to make this 21 go this fast. So yeah, I think there's a lot of maybe Matt Benedetto, but yeah, there's a lot of high hopes coming in, and it just didn't really pan out. And now they have to go into Bristol and win, which Josh Berry is a great short track driver. Who knows? He could pull it off.
I'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, I think Chase Elliott just straight up overdrove the corner. Obviously didn't look intentional. Looked like he just got in there a little bit hot compared to the 21 who was stacked up behind. I think it was the 43 and 22. I might be wrong on that.
I
Um,
don't remember. The 22 was on their outside,
I think
and
he
then
was in that mix. Regardless, just stack up, and Barry's the one that got the worst of it yet again. So he ended up out of the race entirely, by the way. Didn't come back on the track and steal fastest lap this week.
yeah,
Uh, so
no
yeah,
extra point for him.
nah. So Josh Berry's season heads to must win at Bristol. Another playoff driver who had some issues this weekend was SVG, but very different. He scored stage points. He was actually up in the top 10, I think, at the end of stage, what was it, one? It was one or two. Yeah, he got a
Yeah,
couple
stage
stage
two, I
points.
believe. He was up there at one point with
What
the tires.
happened? I mean, he just got shuffled back and was like 30th at the end of the race.
Yeah, he did not have a very good car once the run got going. On the short run, he could hang, but it's just kind of been the story of his year on the ovals. Just hasn't really been able to hang with the guys on the long run. He lost a lot of spots at the start of the race, and it kind of took him off strategy the rest of the day. He had to get on an alternate strategy to even go up and get stage points, and kind of contend for a top 10 position. But once he lost the track position, he just never got up front. It just was not a good day for him. And SVG, only 15 points behind. You could theoretically make that up in one race. We saw William Byron make up 15 at Bristol a few years ago to get in, but there's a big difference between William Byron and Shane Van Gisbergen. So SVG is going to need a lot of things to happen. Probably going to need some drivers to DNF ahead of him if he wants to advance.
SVG, another one of the playoff drivers who had issues. Two playoff drivers also got into it at Gateway, and I think this is maybe the hottest topic of Gateway. Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney. They were racing for what was it, probably fifth, fourth, around there, right? They were racing right
Yeah,
outside the top
top
five,
five positions.
and obviously fighting for. I don't remember if this was in stage two or if this was stage three off the top of my head, but I
It
know
was
it
a
was. I
final
think
stage,
it
I
was. I
believe.
think it was final stage. Late in the race, Larson just another Hendrick car just missed the corner. It felt like.
Yeah,
He said obviously it wasn't intentional in post race, and they were talking about it. It seemed fine, but Larson just goes into three and four, missed corner, clips the 12. 12 goes around. Blaney actually recovered to have an all right finish. I think he actually ended up fourth, so it really wasn't all that bad for him. But
No, no.
Larson got the worst end of the stick, if anything. But yeah, just another misjudgment and another uncharacteristic misjudgment by the five.
Yeah, it's Kyle Larson can overstep the boundary a lot. He's always on the edge of control. We've seen a few times where he just loses the car and gets in a crash. And Gateway was another example of him just getting into the corner too hot. He might have hit those inside curbs as well, which might have shot him up into the 12th. But either way, he just sent it in too hot, and Blaney had to pay the price. But luckily, he didn't get any damage from it or any flat tires, which will lead to damage, as we've seen a few times. But it's they sorted it out. There's a lot of frustration from Blaney's side, which makes sense because the last few weeks he has been wrecked by just things completely out of his control. And Kyle Larson, again, just he had a really fast car at Gateway, but it just the race just kind of fell apart for him at the end. It never really materialized into a race win. And I think a lot of that has to come down to this strategy. Strategy ended up playing a huge part in this race, and it really did not favor out well for the five of Larson.
I will say that's the fastest that five has looked on a full race since probably June. Honestly,
Oh yeah, for
that
sure.
that
They
car
had
looked
they had the
fast.
best car in the first stage by
Oh,
far.
first stage, yeah, first stage, yeah,
Yeah.
start of the
Obviously,
race.
some things happened that got them sent back, but in that opening stage, man, they were fast and dangerous.
I believe that car kind of fell apart a little bit after the diffuser flap issue that they had on that restart, where Bubba Wallace kind of his gearbox didn't shift up or whatever he said over the radio, something with his gearbox. So that caused that stack up, which gave Larson damage. Um,
Yeah, that definitely hurt.
Another Hendrick driver that ran into issues was Alex Bowman, but completely separate. I feel like, and this might be my hot take, I feel like they are shooting themselves in the foot for some heroic comeback going into Bristol. Like I don't know why, but you know how they like make up these sports comebacks, like people make it up like they purposely suck, and then they like all of a sudden want to have this great story. I feel like that's what they're trying to set up with the 48. I feel like they're trying so hard to make this team feel like an underdog when they don't need to be, because both back-to-back weeks they've just been shooting themselves.
Yeah, yeah. They have issues right now. Whether it's the pit crew, the driver Bowman had a speeding penalty in that race as well,
Late
but
too.
the cars themselves have just not been fast. Just ever since the playoffs started, something's just not clicking with that team. Everybody's making mistakes.
The
You
pit
know,
crews made
yeah, pit crew,
plenty.
driver, car is not fast. I don't know what happened because, coming into the playoffs, we both thought they were going deep in the playoffs. You had them in your final four.
They scored the most points in the last 10 regular season races
Yeah,
of
I mean
anybody.
they were plenty fast and just has not been clicking in the first two races. I don't know about, you know, the sandbagging that
I'm
McLaren
like
did.
I'm theorizing, but
Yeah, yeah. Put themselves in a must win at Bristol and go
Aura Farm, what do you call it?
bro. Or, yeah, he's straight up war farming. No, I think this is just like I think this is some mad coping. Not gonna lie, if there's any Bowman fans that actually think that's happening, because they're not in a good spot right now. This is really bad, and it's the worst we've seen this 48 in a long time.
Yeah, I'm gonna move to a couple other drivers I want to hit on. I'm just gonna speed through this. Bubba Wallace looked fast, another good sign for the 23 car. Tyler Reddick wasn't slow. He ran into issues late that kind of set him towards the back of the field. Wasn't ultimately slow. He still got a good gap to the cut line. Logano, which we said he needed a good day. I was skeptical, but he proved me wrong. Um, he showed up. He performed. He ran in the top five pretty much all day. So good race for him. Two drivers I really quickly want to hit on, and this will help me transition here. Uh, Austin, Cindric and Dillon. They will be the drivers currently above and below the cut line. Cindric above, Dillon below. 11 points is the gap. Cindric, obviously the better driver of the two at Gateway. I think we can both agree on that. Dillon probably better at Bristol. Do you think that there was anything Dillon or Cindric could have done that race to really make up more points on the other? Because I think they ran about where they should have.
I think Centric had a little more pace than the final result may show. I don't necessarily think that's the case for Dylan. I don't know if they had pace, but I feel like Cindric had a decent race car. But here's what I've noticed a lot in this next gen era. What separates the good drivers from the great drivers is when they get in traffic. You know what I mean? We've seen the best drivers in Cup, they get caught up in traffic, and it doesn't matter. They're able to get back to the front. Cindric had a quick car, but once he got caught in traffic through the strategy, he really wasn't able to recover and ended up getting, not a great finish out of it. And now is kind of right there on the cut line. So I feel like I just think Cindric needs to perfect his racecraft a little bit more. I think he's far from being at his peak as a Cup driver. I think he's yet to meet his ceiling. So he has a lot of developing to do. But Austin Dillon, on the other hand, I think has been at his peak for years. You know what I mean? He's not getting any better. He's in an RCR car,
I
which is
will,
annoying.
I will cut him
It's
a
not
little
going to get him
slack.
anywhere.
That 3 car is not great.
Yeah,
Let's give him a little slack. Um, I mean, yeah, Dylan just looked like he was fading at the end of the run, even though they got track position. Ultimately, just didn't seem like that 3 car had pace to try and make up points on the 2.
no,
Um, Not really many other drivers I want to mention. I'll just say Ross Chastain as well, real quick. That team was running inside the top 5 at one point, top 10 even, and finished like 27th or something. I don't know. I actually really don't know what went awry. Um, Unfortunate, because now they're closer to the cut line than they probably should be. But yeah, Ross Chastain was definitely struggling at the later stages of that race. Um, but I don't really want to. Actually, there's one more thing I want to hit on. This isn't actually on track related mostly, but we saw radio of Christopher Bell after the race over Twitter. It was very heated. It wasn't directed at Adam Stevens, but it was a conversation between him and his crew chief. And it sounds like Bell is about done. It sounds like he's
yeah,
just tired. I mean, what do you
yeah.
make of
He
that?
had a really fast car.
Again,
Um, Again, you know what I mean. They've had the speed, but again, it just doesn't materialize, and he does not sound happy at all. Which makes sense when you haven't won a race in 6 months. It's been about 6 months since they've won a race. It starts to eat you up inside, and it's like the frustration we see out of Kyle Busch. Christopher Bell is not at that level yet, but with these winless streaks, that's what it does to people. And when you take fast race cars and you finish 7th with them, which was what his words were, it's a tough pill to swallow. And it's even more frustrating when you pile on the fact that he arguably should have won Gateway last year and then had the issue when he was leading the race in the final stage. So it's like, they just can't seem to catch a break there. So it's really frustrating for them.
you reminded me to talk about the winner. I was so focused on the playoff stuff going on, I almost forgot to mention him. Don't worry, I
That's
didn't
okay.
forget.
Yeah.
My father's a big Hamlin fan. He'd be mad at me if I didn't mention this. Denny Hamlin took his 59th career victory at Gateway, one away from tying Kevin Harvick for 10th. Yeah, 10th on the all-time wins list. Huge accomplishment. 200 wins for Toyota as well. And the reason Bell is so upset is because his teammates were 1-2, Briscoe being
Yeah.
second, and they're both playoff drivers, and Briscoe won last week at that. So Bell obviously frustrated. Again, a top 10 is not a bad result. Like, let's not blow this out of proportion, but just worth saying, like, there's a clear frustration building in the 20 car, which I've not seen that much emotion out of Bell in quite some time.
Yeah. And in our last NASCAR episode, we did touch on the fact that this is a big year for Christopher Bell because if you don't outperform Hamlin and Briscoe, there's going to start to be some questions about is he a top 2 priority driver at Gibbs? And so for him to have such a fast car at Gateway and still finish multiple spots behind his teammates, who finished first and second, that's a huge blow to them. Hamlin has 5 wins on the year. Briscoe has 2 now. And both of them are in much better spots right now. And I think everyone would agree that the 11 and the 19 are an overall better race team than the 20 right now. They have a lot of work to do. And yeah, Denny Hamlin, 1 win away from tying Kevin Harvick. That's pretty crazy. I think Denny doesn't get a lot of credit because he doesn't have those championships. A lot of people like to joke and meme about that, but he wins a lot, and it seems to be his priority. Now, I think deep down inside he wants to win a championship. He's not going to let that show, though. Danny Hamlin's the type of guy he does not want to show a weakness like that. deep down inside, I know he wants a title. He can act like, oh, all I care about is wins. A title's not that important. He wants a Cup Series title. I
I
just know it.
I think the broadcast with Steve Letarte and all them, they hit it best. I think Hamlin, to get to 60 like he wants, has to win one more time in the playoffs to get to the championship. And I think that is a great double-edged sword that you can use because to win the championship, I don't know exactly, but if I'm correct, each of the last five champions had at least two or three playoff wins. So like you have to win in the playoffs if you want to be champion. So Hamlin kicking it off with a good start with getting one at Gateway, and just overall looking like one of the best cars all day was very, very impressive and worth noting because the 11 has not looked good in the playoffs in the past couple of years.
Yes, the last champion that we saw, who the only race they won in the playoffs was the final race, was Kyle Busch back in 2019. So it's been a really long time. And so you have to win a lot in these playoffs. So yeah, Denny may very well get his 60th win before that Cup title, but I
Actually,
I think
I was just gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's actually the only champion in this format to not win a playoff race and then win the championship.
I believe so. Yes,
So
everyone else has done it. Won a playoff race and then
yeah,
won
yeah,
the
yeah.
final race and the title. Yeah,
Everyone else has at least done two, as I think at least one twice
Kyle
for
Busch
that.
had.
Yeah,
Kyle Busch has not
he did in
in
2015.
2015.
Did
So both of his
oh,
titles,
he
Kyle
didn't
Busch is
even?
the only guy.
Oh wow, that's
That's
funny.
kind of
That's
crazy. Everyone
crazy.
else has done it except him. Wow.
Bush broke the
Uh,
format
yeah,
twice.
it's funny.
But yeah, I don't know. Good day for Toyota. Denny Hamlin and JGR just in general looked really fast as the 2311. So even LMC, I want to actually shout out John Hunter Nemechek
Yeah.
as well. He actually
Oh
looked
my gosh.
really, really fast. Not like top five fast, but that team looked really close to a playoff contending car for next year, assuming they can keep the speed up. So good signs from the 42 camp. And the 43 was up front a little bit earlier in the race too, before strategy took into play. So just a good day for LMC. Um,
Sure. I think next year we could see one or both cars that make the playoffs. I think Eric Jones is. I would almost bet money he'll make the playoffs next year. Whereas John Hunter Nemechek is a little. This could be a good off-season debate. Will the LMC cars make the playoffs? I
I
think
want
we'll
to.
see at least one
We'll
of them do.
save that because I think we might have differing opinions, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, moving into Bristol, we got a lot to talk about here. So entering this race at Bristol, Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe are locked, right? Like they're good.
Yeah.
They're into the next round. Kyle Larson has 60 points over the next guy. So,
Yeah.
or 60 points over the cut line, excuse me. Not over the next guy. So
Yeah.
Kyle
Yeah.
Larson's got a sizable gap. Another driver with a sizable gap, Bubba Wallace, he's got like, I don't know, I think it's like 40 or 50 points.
He's 50 above.
50 above. So yeah, he's got a gap to work with. Blaney, Byron, Reddick, Bell, all over 30 above. Probably fine without something catastrophic happening. Elliott, Logano, teetering, but they're probably good. I would bet they're probably good. At least Elliott for sure. At least Elliott for sure. 28 points is a lot to lose in one race.
Hmm.
And then Chastain's plus 19, Cindric 11, Dillon behind by 11, SVG 15 behind, and then Bowman and Berry approaching, if not already in, must-win territory, 35 and 45 behind. So, I mean, I won't ask you to make your picks yet on who gets eliminated. I want to hear what do you need from certain drivers at Bristol?
All right, so I'm going to talk about Chase Elliott down because I think from the top 8 drivers, Hamlin and Briscoe, we don't need to see anything. And then, Larson, Bubba, Blaney, Byron, Reddick, Bell, I think they all have a good enough gap to get in. Elliott, I need to see him just have a clean, solid run. They showed a lot of pace at Gateway, which I was surprised about. They didn't qualify very well. I wasn't sure how they were going to be, but they showed up with a pretty decent race car, so I think they have a lot to be happy about. They just need to go follow it up with another good run at Bristol. Joey Logano just needs to have a good finish at Bristol, something he's not done in the next gen era. He's had one top 10 car at Bristol, and it was the 2022 night race, and then of course they had the tire issue at the end. But they just need to have a good solid run. We saw 2023, they had an awful run. They ran in the 30s all night, and then when Corey LaJoie made a mistake and crashed,
Not
he
that
was running.
not that he
Oh
was
no,
gonna make it through. I don't think anyway, but
Yeah. Well, he actually was going to. He was about
Was he?
4 or 5 above, but then just dropping back to last just killed him. But either way, if you run 30th at Bristol, you can't expect to advance because if there's any wrecks ahead of you, you could very well be involved. You're not in a good spot in 30th, so he needs to just have one good run at Bristol. Chastain and Cendric, I think, are in a very similar boat, although I would, of course, think Chastain's in a little bit of a better position on points, and I just think by, driver merit. Um, but there's a lot more pressure on them than Logano and Elliott because if we get a winner from outside that top four, like let's say Alex Bowman wins, Cendric could finish 10th, Chastain finishes 8th, Logano finishes 6th, and Cendric's still out because he just got caught out by a winner outside. Kind of like we saw with the RFK cars in the regular season, how they were good enough on points, still finished well, but there's nothing you can do about winners. So Cendric and Chastain need to beat the other driver. You cannot be the last driver out. And so, in some ways, maybe even Elliott and Bell aren't even safe because, yeah, Bell is 32 above, but he's only about 20 points ahead of Cendric. If we get a new winner and Bell crashes, that he could be in a tough spot even. So Chastain and Cendric are definitely under a lot of pressure. They need to have good runs. And then we look outside the cut line. Austin Dillon, 11 behind. He could point his way in. I struggle to see him, outpacing and outbeating Cendric by 11 points. I don't think that, that team has the pace right now. SVG 15 out. He's just going to need a miracle. They do not have good pace right now. We're hoping to kind of see them take a step up going into the playoffs at these ovals.
They kind of
Has not
have like half a step, maybe.
Yeah, they just really haven't gone anywhere with it. So he's just going to need a lot of things to go his way. And then Bowman and Josh Berry, they just need to win, which I think both are very capable of doing. Bowman can very well win. He's been good at Bristol in the past. We've seen Berry very good at short tracks. So I'm not going to count either of them out, but only one of them can make it. So we're going to just have to see who shows up with the winning speed and can pick up the victory and get in.
Is Alex Bowman going to lead the first 35 laps for Kyle Larson to pass him and lead the next 450, whatever it is?
Exactly.
Last three races.
If Kyle Larson was not an insane race car driver, Bowman could very well have won last year's Bristol race. So we've seen
or this year's before his engine went out. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's I forgot about that. His engine blew last race, or last year, and this year he had an engine.
No, it was just this year, I think. Was it last year?
Just this year?
I think it was just.
I know this year. Yeah, I know this year he had an engine.
Yeah, it was just this year. Not last year, just this year.
But either way, he's been great at Bristol in the past, so you have to expect winning speed from him this weekend, and they're going to need it. But again, they have to clean up the pit road issues.
Especially at Bristol.
Cannot have these. Yeah, because if you have that issue at Bristol, on a green flag pit stop, you're losing 3 or 4 laps, and then your race is definitely over. So we can't see 40-second pit stops out of them. They gotta show up with a fast car, which I think they'll do. Bowman can't have any issues, and the pit crew definitely cannot have any issues.
I will say the speeding penalty was very uncharacteristic of Bowman. He's never really been a problem on pit road with that. So just a rare mistake on pit road from him. I guess going into Bristol, there's only really 2 drivers I want to mention, at least before I give thoughts. I want to see winning speed out of the 20 car where they finish in the top 5. Please. I need to see them finish in the top 5, where they can execute a race. Not because I don't think they can, but because I need to see momentum be built. Because Darlington, they were fast, wrecked. Or not wrecked, but you know what I mean. And then Gateway, pit stop strategy, whatever you want to call it, finished 7th. They didn't finish top 5, where his teammates were 1-2. So I need to see at least the top 5 out of that 20 car. And the other driver I want to see something out of specifically is Josh Berry. And it's not him winning. I don't need him to win. Him making the playoffs was the accomplishment in itself. What I need, though, is for him to not wreck the race car. And I know that sounds like a joke, but I'm serious. I need him to not wreck the race car. I'm serious. I need him to not wreck the race car, and I need him to finish in the top 15. Why? Because if you can at least salvage a good end to your playoffs, you could at least build momentum for the rest of the season and be like, okay, so we figured out the flaws early in my playoff career. When we try and go and win next year and try and get back here, we know what to expect. it's just building grounds. You want to have, and even if they win, great. Then they're in the round of 12. So then, I mean, like, there's upsides to that. I just need to see him finish the race, especially. Just, I need a full race out of him. But I'm done speculating. Do you want to give me your thoughts? Who's getting out?
So I do agree with you. I think we need to see something out of Bell. You know, they've shown winning pace, but they do need to get the finishes now. You know what I mean? It's time to finish out races. The Josh Berry take is definitely something. I just think you know they do need to finish a race, yes, but I think they need to do a little more to feel happy about their first round, because I think a crash in a 15th, they're going to be like, oh man, that really sucks. And yeah, after a couple months, they'll be like, okay, we had a good season, let's go on to next year. But
In the
I think
moment, yeah. That
they would be. I think a successful weekend would definitely be top five pace for them, to at least show that when our backs are against the wall like they are now, we're going to go and deliver a fast race car. But they're also in the 21 car. It's going to be hard to deliver a very fast car. The 21 is just trying to build. They're building blocks right now because they haven't had a playoff contending car since De Benedetto 5 years
I
ago. So,
I will say that car, excuse me, that car is historically fast at Bristol. So there is a good sign there for Barry fans.
yeah. Remember how good that 21 was at Texas with Blaney? Put in
No
like
reason.
200 laps there that one
Yeah, for
year.
no
Yeah.
reason. Was it like 2017, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, the
Ridiculous.
21 car, it may not be good everywhere, but it's good at a few certain tracks. We don't know why, but it just
Vegas,
fits that team, I guess. Yeah.
Vegas. It's always been good at Vegas.
Yeah.
So
And so, yeah, they could come in with a good car. But, um, as for the four drivers I see being out, okay,
here,
I'm going to make a
do you want
bold
to go
move.
back and forth, or do you want to do this? You want to go straight through?
I'll just go straight through it. Like, Josh Berry is going to
Okay.
be out. I think Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be out. I think Austin Dillon's going to be out. Those are my three obvious ones. I don't see any of them getting in. Now, my winner at Bristol,
He's,
I think that Alex
oh
Bowman
jeez. Oh
is going to
jeez.
recover from two awful weekends. And I think Bowman is going to pull off an incredible upset, win at Bristol. He's been so good there lately. And that would be a career defining win for Bowman, because he's never been, obviously, he was injured a couple years ago and had a huge deficit, but he's never been at this much of a deficit going into an elimination race. So this is like, we've never seen him with his back to the wall like this. This could be one of those clutch moments that we saw out of Harvick in his early years of the playoffs. You remember
Hell, a
that?
couple years
When
ago.
yeah, Bell a couple years ago. The next step to Bowman's career is pulling off an insane clutch victory in the playoffs. And this weekend at Bristol is the perfect opportunity to do so. And I believe he does come out with that victory and makes it. And the driver I have missing it on points, the 22 of Joey Logano, I think is going to be out. As much as I hate to say it, this team
Oh boy.
does not show anything at Bristol, absolutely nothing in the past few years. And the team is not coming in with a lot of momentum right now. They did get a good finish at Gateway, but the car was not fantastic. It was good on the second to last run from the end. He ran down Denny Hamlin for some reason, but
He
then
was
after
really
that,
fast. Yeah.
it was back to, just a fifth to 10th place race car. So again, that team's just kind of mediocre right now, and it's an odd year. It's not an even year. So they're due for elimination.
Yeah.
Those are going to be my predictions for tonight's race and Saturday, or
Um,
this weekend's
this
race
weekend's race
Saturday night.
Saturday. We get the idea.
Yeah,
I'll say this. I don't disagree with Barry. I don't disagree with SVG. Um, Barry, I think, again, no matter what, I think it's generally a successful season when you look back at it. Made the playoffs, won a race. Not too much more anyone could ask for of that 21 car. SVG, he just needed more playoff points. We said this at the start of last show. He just needed more. The gap wasn't enough. The gap he's lost in two races is 31 points. 31
yeah,
points.
yeah. It's really bad.
So that's a big margin to swing. Um, this is where it gets hard. I want to believe that Alex Bowman can go out and just win this race flat out, right? I haven't seen the pit crew, Blake Harris, Alex Bowman, and Hendrick's 48 car, all four, be on the same page at once this entire year. They have recovered from races. They've finished well. They've got good finishes, but they have not put all four of them together for a good race because when they do, they win. They do. Alex Bowman's a winner. I put it at the end of the day. I know he has winless streaks, but when everything clicks, he's a winner. And we talk about Bell having that breakthrough moment. You talk about Harvick, but Harvick was established. I mentioned Bell because before 2022, Christopher Bell was known as a great driver, right? Everyone knew he was a great race car driver. But when he won not one but two elimination races and put himself in the final four, that was a breakthrough moment. That elevated him to, wow, he's a top driver in our series. If Bowman is that tier below for a lot of people. If Bowman truly wants to take that step to be a title contender year in, year out, and be considered a top driver in the sport, a playoff elimination race win to put yourself into the next round after being 30 whatever points behind, that does it. That to me speaks, okay, he's ready for the top of the series. That tells me that.
Yeah.
With that being said, I think he makes it, but I don't think he's winning. And I'm gonna explain this.
What?
Second place gets 35 points, correct? I think he's finishing second, by the way. I should clarify. And I think because it's so hard to pass at Bristol, I think he will rack up enough points in the stages plus his finish, whereas everybody else will finish in the 20s and 30s. I think that's enough. Because when I look at the drivers he has to pass, right, he's 20 behind SVG for reference. SVG is finished this in the spring, was 38th. Okay, that's not concerning to me. In the spring as well, we didn't see much speed out of Austin Dillon, and I don't have any reason to believe that Austin Dillon's going to show up and be a top 5 driver at Bristol. I would love to be pleasantly surprised and be right with my prediction, but I don't think that's happening. I don't think Dillon does that. I don't think he's worse than Cindric. Cindric always runs pretty rough here, and that's 4 drivers right there. I'm including Barry, so it's 4 drivers. I think he can outpoint those guys. So I think that is a doable thing for Alex Bowman. Now the other drivers I have out besides SVG and Barry, I was dragging on that a little long, but my other 2 drivers are Joey Logano is one of them, and I agree with you on this take. And it's not because I actually don't trust Joey Logano, but I think he's actually a clutch driver when it comes to the playoffs, as much as I don't like it. He is a clutch driver.
Obviously, he's a clutch driver in the playoffs.
I'll give him his credit.
Like it's a hot take.
No, just because people don't like to hear it, but it's true. He is. So I'll give him his credit, but I'm not confident on his gap, considering that his average finish in the playoffs, or not in the playoffs, his average finish in the next gen races at Bristol is sub 25th. That's exactly. He's not going to get that. You can't get that done finishing there with your current gap, especially if the guys below you are running at the front. I don't think he's going to run horrible, but I just think he's just going to miss it by a couple points to Bowman. And then my other guy, dude, flip a coin. Dillon or Cindric? You know what? Okay, I'm going to be safe and take Cindric just because I think he has enough of a buffer. Although I think Dillon's better at Bristol. Give me Austin Cindric to make it through. Give me Dillon out. So I'll have Logano, the same 4 as you. Logano, Dillon, SVG, and Barry. Because I don't see a world. Cindric I could see falling out, but I think it would take a really decent Dillon race that I'm not prepared for. So give me those 4 as my eliminations as well. And shout out real quickly. I think I'm just gonna make my winner pick now. Eventually, he's got to win Bristol, right? I think Chase Elliott's winning. He was up when he was up front at Darlington. When he was fast. I will say that. When he lost track position, he wasn't, but he was in clean air. He was fast at Gateway, which is a good sign. If they can build off that, go to Bristol, one of his best next gen tracks, I'm inclined to believe that he can win this race. So I will take Chase Elliott as my winner pick. I'll throw that to you though.
Interesting. Yeah, we need to sort of see him win at a non-super speedway. As we talked about, he's only done it once since his injury, once since the 2022 Nashville race. So
I'm not counting Pocono, by the way, for anybody that
I forgot about Pocono.
He didn't win that. He didn't win that race.
Forgot about that.
Go ahead.
Forgot about that. That's crazy. But anyway, so the thing with Logano is going into this round, I didn't have him being eliminated, obviously, but that's because I thought he was going to have a fast car at Darlington. But instead, he had an awful car. He needs to have, in my view, he needs to have a 30 or more point buffer going into Bristol to be good. And he doesn't have that. It's right around 20, 21 points above. And with, yeah, I will say this. If it was Cendric, Bowman, Dillon, SVG below the cut line, I think Logano gets in. But the fact that you have a driver like Bowman outside the cut line, a guy who's so good at Bristol, and he's by far the quickest car of those guys who are currently below. He could definitely jump in and win a race. So I think that doesn't play well for Logano, Cendric, Chastain, any of those guys right on the cut line. And then obviously we agree on a lot of the other picks. SVG and Merrey are kind of your obvious eliminations. So yeah, I agree with the picks. I don't think. I don't know how to feel about the Elliott pick. I mean, obviously, I picked another Hendrick car, Bowman to win. I think Elliott could. Any of the Hendrick cars could win. They're all good at Bristol. So, and this needs to. This is also like, Hendrick's been kind of lacking the last couple races in terms of the results. And at Darlington, of course, they didn't have the speed. So I think this is going to be a big rebound weekend for Hendrick. I could see all four cars in the top 5 to 10 range. Should be a good weekend for them.
Yep, I'm inclined to believe that we're getting a Hendrick car in victory lane, whether it's Elliott, Bowman, Byron, Larson. I don't care. Take your pick. You're probably right. Um, so yeah, I mean, other than that, unless you have anything else you want to, is there any other drivers you want to mention before we go to Bristol? And just, you know, move
No,
on.
I think I would like to see some more steps out of the legacy cars. They were really good at Bristol a couple years ago. I guess just last year when we had the that big tire wear in the spring race. So who knows? We may very well see a good weekend out of them. They've been building a lot of momentum. Should be interesting to see how that plays out. And maybe the RFK cars could show up as well.
Oh,
We
sure.
saw them win at Bristol a couple years ago, so we'll see.
Yeah, the last driver I want to mention before we move on. Ross Chastain. I want to say, I am scared as a Chastain. If you're a Chastain fan, I would be scared going to Bristol only because Ross Chastain is maybe the most up and down driver at this racetrack I have ever seen. He will go 1 week from finishing fifth there to the next time we go there finishing 29th. So just if you're a Chastain fan, keep an eye on that, especially considering that the one team recently has had a pattern of running up in the top 10 and then finishing like 20 something. I don't know
Yeah.
why they do that, but worth mentioning that for them as well. So yeah, that's our thoughts for Bristol. But we have another race you have to give thoughts on, and that's the Italian GP
Yeah.
that happened. Um, I'm gonna let you kind of take the lead here on the start of this race. It was kind of a chaotic one. For simple terms, Verstappen on the start had a decent start, but I think Norris got the better jump. And then when he went to make a move to the right, he got in the grass, and then going into one, Verstappen went wide because Norris went wide off the apex. Verstappen took the lead. Thoughts on that?
Um, so as you're going to learn a lot in this show, I have a lot of problems with the way Max Verstappen races. He exploits the leader rule a lot. He thinks that if he's the leader, he can push other guys off the track because I'm the lead car. I can do what I want. And on the start of this race, he was the leader, but in my opinion, now obviously he doesn't feel the same. I think he still owes Lando Norris room on the racetrack, especially on a straightaway. So I think moving down and putting him onto the grass, I did not agree with that move. And obviously Lando didn't agree because going into turn one, he drove it in hard and pushed Max off the track. I don't agree with that from Lando's side. He should have just let the stewards handle it. They weren't going to do anything about it, but he put himself in a bad spot by diving into turn one like that. So I just and it's interesting because you know we've seen we've seen Norris kind of multiple times this year. We've seen other drivers get in his head, and we haven't really seen that out of Piastri. I mean, Lando Norris, he got frustrated by Max Verstappen and put himself in a bad spot going into turn one. And I think it just shows that in this title battle, Piastri really does have the upper hand mentally. Lando Norris should not be letting the third place guy in standings get to him like that. Norris put his own race at risk, and I really don't agree with that. What do you think about that start incident?
I mean, yeah, the first turn incident, it was hard because, like, I think going on the straightaway, I think obviously Norris got the better start on Verstappen, right? Um, I think that Norris, while he had the right to be there, Verstappen didn't turn to give him no room. Verstappen went straight, and I know that it seemed, and Norris has the right to be upset. I'm not saying he doesn't, but Verstappen was going straight. He didn't maliciously go like this with the wheel. From what the replays I saw, he didn't do this. He just was like this. It was pretty
I
straight
don't
to
agree
me.
with that.
It looked like straight to me, but regardless, Norris pays him back going into one when he sent him wide. I think that it was a little bit of an overreaction from Norris to something that really isn't as big of a thing in the grand scheme of things. Because let's be real, right? As you mentioned, Verstappen winning this race means nothing to Norris, right? Because he's looking for a championship. Verstappen's just trying to add another win to his, what is it, 66 now with that win? 67?
I believe so. Something like
So we're in that range, right? And it's hard for me to argue either side on that case. I think both sides are right, honestly. Um, Obviously, when Verstappen gave the place back to Norris, he passed him a couple laps. Verstappen drove off. I think I agree with the mentality aspect of this too. Norris is so concerned about everything else going on around him. Even when there's another driver within 3 seconds of him, he's so concerned with everything else except his own driving. And um, when you want to be a top caliber driver, a championship driver, you have to be able to just tune it all out. Focus on yourself. I understand if team communications came in, one thing, I understand that. But there wasn't at the start. Just drive. That's what they're asking you to do. So flustered with Verstappen that he almost lost sight of what he was trying to do in the first place, which is try and outpoint Piastri. Um, I will say it's been like at first I would get that, right? As a younger driver, when you're first getting in the front of the field a couple years ago, I understand that. I would understand if Gasly was like that because that's a different experience.
for sure.
But Norris has now been in this position for almost 2 years, 2.5 years, right? There's no need to be worrying
And
about
he's been in F1. This is his seventh
seventh
season.
set. Yeah, it's seventh. Yeah, seventh year.
Hmm. Yeah,
So no need to be worrying about what Verstappen's doing. But yeah, I think that's my thoughts. I don't think it was as egregious as some people maybe want to make it out to be. I understand the frustration at Verstappen. I understand why Norris did what he did. I understand why Verstappen took the road he did. I would too. But that's my thoughts on that. I don't think it was anything as egregious as people want to make it out to be.
so the angle that I saw that kind of gave it away for me is pretty early on in the start phase. Max comes pretty low and gets really close to Norris, and Max in he's brilliant in the way that he can force a driver off without it looking like he forced him off. He made sure that he forced Norris before they got to the grass, so that by the time they got to the grass, oh, Norris, just so happens to be where the grass is going to be. But like right off the start, you see Max get right up on Lando and force him down, and then when the pit road exit ends and the grass cuts up, that's where Norris is. So. Yeah, it's not egregious. Max didn't turn the wheel into Norris, but he drifted across off the start to put Lando in that bad spot. But if that was Piastri that forced Lando off, I could see the frustration from Lando's side. But that's way too much of a risk to go into turn one and put yourself in a bad spot like that when Max is not battling for the title. So I agree with that. But Max knew what he was doing. He had that planned out the whole time. He's so good at that. But leading on to a part of the race that ended up being a lot more
Actually,
important.
actually, I am gonna stop you here, but one. I want to get one thought out
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Um, as a racer myself, I want to mention this. As a racer myself, when you're racing and you're off the start, you're not thinking about the most drivers are not thinking about where the track ends, right? You're just turning to try and get as much to pinch them off, right? And I don't know what Max is thinking. I'm obviously not in his helmet, but I, as a driver, don't force somebody over next to the grass where the grass is going to start because I want to shove them off the road or so that they have to get out of the throttle. I do it because like I'm using the racetrack that's offered to me. You're using racetrack that's offered to you at that moment, but when it ends, I'm not going to move because you were driving where racetrack is. It's just that's you have to make a decision. If you want to door your way onto the racetrack, that's a whole nother discussion. That's obviously not what Lando did. He kind of backed off a little bit, got online, and then tried to make a move into one, which ended up hurting him in the long run. But yeah, I don't necessarily think it was anything wrong with what Verstappen did, just because I think it's part of racing, especially maybe it's a little different for me, because I don't race in Formula One. Yeah, I think that's why I think of that. But yeah, I know where you're going with this, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, I have seen Max back to the Max thing because this is I think our opinions on him definitely differ. I think I have one of the more hotter takes on Verstappen, but we've seen him exploit the way a track works before. We've at Interlog when he was battling for the championship with Hamilton, he abused racetracks where there was a lot of runoff and used that to his advantage to get the lead by forcing another driver off. We saw it at Interlagos, we saw it at Saudi, we saw it at Barcelona. Although Barcelona, I think, was a little more in the confines of the racing rules, whereas Interlagos and Saudi were straight up illegal. I don't know how he got away with the Interlagos thing. That still blows my mind to this day. But we have seen him exploit the way a track is and the way track limits are in the past. So I wouldn't put it past him. But
Absolutely, I don't disagree that he's done it before. I just don't think this particular instance is that. I think it's just more of a driver reaction thing of him just trying to get, racetrack off the start. Um, but yeah, moving on from that, I'm assuming you were going to the end of this race with
yeah,
another. Yeah, so I'll let you take control over that. Where were you?
yeah, yeah. This one definitely was not as bad for Max. I'm gonna keep going back. This was not bad. It was not. I agree with you on that. This is nowhere near on the level of the Hamilton incidents. But anyway, the Piastri Norris debacle at the end. So, Lando Norris was ahead the whole race. He was quicker. He was the second place car. He was going to finish second. Piastri was going to finish third. And Lando Norris has an almost 6-second pit stop and falls behind Piastri. And then Piastri lets him back by. And he wasn't happy about it, which, he shouldn't necessarily be happy about it because he's letting his title rival go, gain an extra 3 points on him. But, a lot of the discussion comes back to Hungary of last year, where we saw Piastri was the leader. It was his race to win. Norris got an undercut to cover off of cars behind. And in the process, he accidentally got the lead coming out of the pits because of how strong the undercut was. And so they swapped the drivers around. Piastri ended up being allowed to pack past Lando Norris and won the race. So all of the fans that are talking about conspiracy, McLaren conspiracies of there they are conspiring against Piastri. We've seen them do this before. I don't have an issue. I don't know about you. I don't have an issue with what McLaren did this weekend. I think if you revert, Lando Norris is the more unpopular driver in F1 right now. I
I
think
don't
we can
know if I could
agree
say
that.
that. Well,
Well,
okay, I think the our friend, like, okay, so of our group of people, I would say yes, Norris is the more unlikable driver. But I think when you look at F1 as a whole, when you go online, social media, go to races, you see more Norris stuff in the stands, I would say.
yeah. I mean, there's more Norris fans, but there's a lot more Norris haters than
There's,
the haters of
oh no,
Piastri.
I feel like Piastri is just more a neutral driver for a lot of people, as to
Yeah,
where Norris has a very big love and hate relationship with the fans.
yeah. Lando Norris is the more polarizing driver, and so when an incident like this favors Norris, the fans are going to be a lot louder and are going to be in Piastri's favor. Whereas Hungary last year, where you reverse the roles, no one was really talking about that. They're just like, that's what they should have done. Whereas today, it's a lot more, or this past weekend, it was a lot more split opinions. So, um,
I think
yeah,
adding the championship fight also kind of
yeah,
adds to
championship
that
fight
too.
as well. Yeah, higher stakes.
I'll say, okay, I remember my thoughts on Hungary now that I'm thinking about it. At the time, I was like, they made the right call because I think in that moment, the undercut working, and even though you were trying to give Piastri the position to win, I think I agreed with it at the time. Looking at it now, and I don't change my thought because of what happened this weekend, I changed my thought because I look at this differently. I think it's less about Piastri getting his first win now that we've seen him win, as much as I'm like, McLaren should have let Norris have the spot because ultimately that's the way that the race naturally played out. I am a fan of when something just naturally happens. We don't have to sit here and wonder, like, oh, well, what if this? What if that? If the race naturally plays out that way, then the race should naturally play out that way. So I was a little discouraged now thinking about it that Piastri got that maiden win because McLaren made them switch. So going to now, I'm like, I don't think they should have made them switch, especially considering they're in the title fight. I understand, right? Like, as a person watching who understands the team logic of it, I understand, right? McLaren wants to make sure that it's not skewed. But by making a decision like that, you're skewing it anyway. Because you're like, okay, well, just fix it, let them buy. You're skewing it anyway because you're then telling the drivers how to race. And obviously, and I think this is the biggest part of the discussion, should Piastri have even done it in the first place? Should he have followed the team orders? A lot of people say no because you're fighting for a championship. That's the Formula One World Championship, the most prestigious thing to most people in motorsports, aside from maybe an Indy 500 and Le Mans. So why would you purposely give up points that would aid you to get to that goal? I understand both sides of the coin. I personally am a fan of when a race naturally plays out, so I would have preferred if Piastri had kept his position, but I understand why they switched them.
So there's a few races. There's actually 3 races I want to cite that have to do with what you just talked about. I'm going to go on a long rant here. 2017 Monaco. I don't know if you remember that race. Kimi Räikkönen was leading most of the race. Sebastian Vettel was in second. It was Kimi's race to win from pole. And you can't pass at Monaco. It's all about pit strategy. Kimi Räikkönen gets the undercut. He pits a few laps earlier than Sebastian Vettel. Vettel stays out, and they thought they were giving Kimi the optimal strategy, but in reality, Vettel was able to use the clean air to end up jumping him the pit stops. And at the time, there wasn't really a lot of talk about swapping the drivers. The fans really didn't want to swap the drivers. Like there really wasn't much talk about it. You know what I mean? So that was kind of an instance I can think of where there was that difference in strategy that benefited one driver over the other, and we saw them not do anything about it. Whereas in Hungary last year, they did do something about it, or Monza this year, but this year obviously has championship stakes. And then this year at Hungary, Lando Norris was nowhere. You know what I mean? He was never going to win that race. But on the one-stop strategy, he ends up coming out ahead, wins the race ahead of Piastri. And so it's kind of like, at what point is it racing and not racing? Because those are 2 instances where team orders were not implemented, even though strategy benefited one driver over the other. Whereas Hungary last year, strategy benefited Norris, but drivers were stopped. This year at Monza, or swapped, I should say. This year at Monza, there's a pit road issue. They swapped the drivers. So, like, you really have to.
I think
You really have to have your own opinion on what you consider racing and what you consider circumstantial stuff.
I just like the way that races naturally play out. Honestly, if I'm sitting here as okay, I'll be blunt. I didn't watch F1 2017 Monaco Grand Prix, partly because I don't like watching Monaco, but also because I wasn't a fan at the time. So I didn't know that, so I'm finding this out for the first time. After hearing that, if I was a fan then, because I was a young kid, I probably would have been like, well, yay, because Vettel was leading, right? Or I would have been like, no, switch them because Raikkonen should have won. Looking at it objectively, not as a fan of a certain person or a fan, like being completely unbiased, I think that drivers should naturally just race, whatever the circumstances are. There would have to be something like horrendous. Like I'm talking like you just didn't put the tire on the car, like you forgot your job type horrendous for that to be an excuse. That's different. That's different. Like someone not doing their job, but a miscommunication, a bad pit stop, slow stop, different strategy. Let them race. Just let them race.
Wow.
That's my take. And honestly, I think if Norris was as fast as he was saying he was, he would have passed Piastri anyway. like I don't think there would have been this big issue anyway. So that's my take on that.
It's interesting. So I think our line on the difference between racing and circumstantial issues outside of the race, I think that's where it differs a little bit. Because for me, I didn't have a problem with 2017 Monaco. That Vettel just put himself on the better strategy. 2015 or 2020 this year's Hungary race, Norris put himself on a different strategy and won the race. I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? That's just two guys,
Nothing got
winning the
involved.
race.
Nobody got involved in these. Keep in mind.
Yeah, neither got involved in that. So I agree with how the teams handled it. I also agree with how the teams handled this weekend's race at Monza, because I believe that the line starts at stuff like pit road issues, because the two McLaren cars are pitted by the same pit crew, right? It's the same 21, 22, whatever members pitting the car. One of the stops was your normal 2.5 seconds. One of your stops was 6 seconds. So if you are a team like McLaren and you're funding and supporting two championship contending drivers, I think you should put them on equal level grounds. And so if you see a variable like that with a bad pit stop come in, I'd like to see the team correct that, because you don't want at the end of the race, yeah, Piastri finished second, but it was only because Norris had a bad stop. And you don't want to cost Lando Norris 3 points because of an issue that Piastri did not have. So then the question becomes, do McLaren intentionally sabotage one of Oscar Piastri's engines to even out their engine issues?
That's the thing. Like,
So
but that's my thing.
it's
Are
a
you gonna
double-edged sword for
that
sure.
that's the thing. Like, are you gonna now plague another incident for your driver just because Norris had a mechanical problem? Like, that's where my line stops. Like, I'm like that. Just let it happen. Let it happen. It's supposed to happen the way you're manufacturing things is what causes this bitterness in not only your team, because they won't talk about it, but there is bitterness between Piastri and Norris for sure. It's
Oh,
evident.
absolutely.
And this is
Absolutely.
what causes bitterness in the fans and what makes our job better because we get to talk about it. But
Yeah,
like
for sure.
like it just makes it there's unnecessary drama and it shouldn't exist, and just let the race play out. Like if we go to I don't know, if we go to Singapore and Piastri blows a motor just on random luck, it happens. I shouldn't expect Norris to be getting some sort of thing the next race to even it out. No, stop manufacturing it. Let the drivers race. Just whatever happens. I understand team things happen and it sucks, right? I'm gonna just pull this back to NASCAR for my example to wrap my take up here. In NASCAR, you don't see teams get involved like that really ever. I mean, it's happened on occasion, but you rarely see a team get involved. Why? Because it's called race manipulation. You know why they have a race manipulation rule? Because when drivers try and move around, it's not natural. NASCAR likes their naturally, well, typically likes their naturally played out races. I should mention, typically. So they don't like when teams try and interfere and set up points for this way and this way. I mean, we saw that last year. I won't get into the whole debacle, but we saw it last year. Yeah, but we won't. But I won't get into the whole thing. But we saw it last year. So again, they like it when it tries to play out naturally because it's a headache to think about, especially as the team as the group of people running your sport. You don't want to think about that, right? So I honestly am on the side of just let the drivers race, no matter what happens, unless it is something like super duper severe, you know.
Okay, so I think the reason that we haven't seen it in NASCAR and we've seen it more in F1 is
I mean, I know
because,
why. I'm just it's just my argument
yeah,
to that.
yeah. I just think the reason, and I think the validation for the F1 team doing it is that in NASCAR, yes, you have Hendrick Motorsports, but you don't have 400 cars being pitted by the same people, have the same race engineers. Obviously, there's two engineers, but they're in the same team. In NASCAR, it's all different. You have different pit crews, different, everything, different crew chiefs. Whereas in F1, it's all like two cars for one unified team. So I think that's why we see more team orders. But I think there's some title battles that you can look at that have been stained by mechanical issues or exterior issues.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big one is the 2016
Everyone looks at
championship.
Malaysia. Everybody looks at
Everyone looks
Malaysia.
at Malaysia, and it's so unfortunate because even if you don't have that engine issue, Nico Rosberg still probably wins the championship because I think you would agree he spent the final 4 races relaxing. You know what I
Also,
mean?
I'd
Just
also
spent it relaxing.
not to
Finish
just
so he could finish
yeah,
second and win the title.
not even to dwell on it, but he also had mechanical problems that race, which people don't want to talk about. He would have also finished in the
Yeah, he
top
got
two.
spun by Vettel or whoever in turn one.
Mechanical issues. I'm trying to
Yeah,
avoid talking about mechanical issues.
yeah,
So he got robbed of points too. People don't mention that. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, end of the day, I just think let them race.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, you're entitled to your own opinion on that. I
Yeah.
see the argument. Like, I understand people being like, no, yes, switch them, or no, don't switch them. I get it, both sides. Just I'm a fan of letting it naturally happen.
Yeah. So I agree, let them race. I think I will say though, there is something so far I've agreed with what the teams have done on all these. I do think that last year's Hungary race is the one that I would not have swapped because you had Norris get on a different strategy and his strategy ended up being quicker. I think the reason they did swap is because they didn't want to take away a first career win for Piastri in such a cruel way. If that happened, like kind of like you said earlier, if that happened this
If
year,
it wasn't a first win, like the
if it was
first,
not a first win, if this happened this year, we would not have seen a swap. I'm almost confident in that. We didn't see a swap in Hungary this year when they were on 2 different strategies, and Norris won. Last year at Hungary was a little different circumstances because they were on the same strategy, and Norris got the undercut to defend. So I don't know. It's just all this is so tough, and there's probably a million other incidents that we could cite as well. But
yeah,
I'm not going to get into that.
the
It's just our opinions do differ a little bit. But I do agree for the most part. Let them race. But there's a couple things like bad pit stops that I think there needs to be the team needs to step in for that.
the last thing I'll mention before I end this McLaren debate here is I think if you look at Hungary last year, right? I mentioned that Piastri winning his first race was a huge reason to why they did what they did. There was a report that came out. I don't know if you remember this. I don't remember who it was by, so I won't quote, but McLaren said that they weren't sure if Norris was going to fight for the title or not at this point. And to me, that's crazy. I remember saying at the time, like, that's insane. You should know this by this point in the season. So them not knowing that is a huge also reason to why they did what they did. Because if they think Norris is going to fight for the title, they would have been like, oh yeah, swap him because McLaren wants a title. But they weren't like that. They let him play, or they wouldn't have swapped him. I mean, but they swapped them because they were probably like, Norris isn't going to get to Verstappen, and then who knows? 7 points right there could have been a huge difference in confidence going into a different race. You don't know. I'm just saying there are things that we don't know, things that we barely know about. Like there's just so much that goes into it. I just think let it play out naturally because of that. Because we don't know what
That
else is going on.
that is a fascinating port. I'm trying to put myself back into the mental place of Hungary last year because I remember really early on in the year I was like, oh, this just could be another Red Bull domination show where Max wins the
And it
title
just
10 minutes
wasn't.
early. But I'm trying to remember if McLaren had gotten there by Hungary,
They were.
or was Hungary like their breakthrough race where it's like, oh,
No,
they're
no, no.
finally,
Their breakthrough was Miami. They kind of broke through,
yeah,
and then the race
that's where
after
Norris
that,
got his first
and
win.
then after that, it was like, okay, McLaren's the best car. It was
Okay,
pretty evident from that
yeah,
point.
okay. I'm trying to put myself in that mindset, so I'm surprised they would say that at that time.
They were considering it. They were considering it all the way until Belgium, where they were like, all right, let's let him go fight for the title. But at that point, you're already after the summer break. I feel like you should have known that 5 races
Yeah,
ago.
that's kind of wild. That's just McLaren doing this is what we've seen out of McLaren the last 20 years. They've just been fumbling around. We haven't seen them have a clean season since the Hakkinen days.
That's
Even
why
when
they haven't.
Hamilton won a title there, they
That
didn't win the
I was say.
constructors.
That's why they haven't.
2007 they had Spygate. I mean, it's insane.
I was say that's exactly why they haven't won a clean championship. I'm also quoting 2008. They haven't won a clean championship since like 1999 or 2000, whatever year that was. Hakkinen won it the
Yeah,
second time. Um,
yeah.
so I don't know, but
That team is just so
we
they're
we
they're
could
just
we could
it's a
rant for
disaster.
we could rant for hours about McLaren and Ferrari about how much they bottle everything, but we will refrain from that. So I don't have too much more to comment on. Do you have anything else you want to say before we kind of send them off here?
Um, I will say I'm going to say this a little early. I do not see Lando Norris winning this championship. I think that he has the pace to do so. I think he's getting destroyed in the mental game. I think him letting Max Verstappen get in his head that much, I don't see a way Norris wins this championship. I just don't. I think Piastri's smashing him way too much in the mental game. He's so much more calm. He's not letting exterior factors get to him. Um, I don't see it. I'm sorry. And when Piastri was told to let Norris by, he had there was a little bit of like why are we doing this? But Norris was a lot more, I guess, rebellious last year. I guess you would say he was a lot more against the team order, whereas this year
Piastri just
Piastri,
kind of let it.
yeah.
He just played
So
rolled over, played dead,
Piastri
being
wasn't
a
like
team
looking
player.
at the 3 points like life or death. He really wasn't, because I think he thinks that this title's still in his control. So
Big
if
thing.
I'm a Piastri fan, I'm feeling really good about things right now.
Yeah, and there being no F1 Grand Prix coming up this weekend, that gives us a no race predictions ahead. So, with that, thank you guys so much for stopping by. I have been your host, Mekhi Winfrey, once again joined by Parker Merrey. Hopefully, we will see you guys next week after Bristol, so we can give you our round of 12 thoughts before, where do they kick off the round at? Kansas? I think there. And
I
then
believe so.
give a our thoughts ahead of, I think next is the Singapore Grand Prix. I have to fact check that. But
Yes.
okay. So with that, thank you guys so much for stopping by, and we will see you in the next episode of Sideline to Speedway.
Thank you, guys.